I think brand strategy at its core is really aligning what an organization fundamentally believes in. Marketing should be just as much about internal. So it's really about aligning, what an organization thinks, does, and says. So trust is at an all-time low. Like if you're hiding the real you from me, in a low trust environment, my gut says, what else are you hiding?
Marketing, like a symphony, is a harmonious blend of instruments, but without the proper direction, it's just noise. Welcome to the Supply Chain Marketing Show, presented by Supply Chain Brain Media. From the art of storytelling to the science of data, we'll uncover marketing strategies that drive success. In this episode, Ralph Henderson sits down with brand strategist and creative leader Ron Tite to unpack why strategies, not more campaigns, may be the most underused growth lever in the supply chain today. Now, here's your Supply Chain Marketing Show host and guide, Ralph. Hey, and I have one of those ball caps, Henderson.
Welcome to the Supply Chain Marketing Show. I'm Ralph Henderson, your host. This is brought to you by Supply Chain Brain Media. There's a quiet truth in supply chain marketing that nobody really talks about. Most supply chain companies don't have a marketing problem. They don't even have a sales problem. They have a clarity problem. Because in an industry that's built on precision, efficiency, optimization, and performance, we often struggle to explain simply why we matter. We talk about platforms, visibility, we talk about orchestration, automation, AI, of course, digital transformation, end-to-end solutions. But the buyers keep asking the same question. Why are you different? Here's the reality. Your operations may be world-class. Your technology may be exceptional. Your people may be brilliant. But if the market doesn't feel the difference, it doesn't exist. Brand isn't your logo. It's not your color palette. Brand isn't even your messaging framework. Brand is trust at scale. It's the reason somebody returns your call. It's why a CFO approves the investment. It's why a customer chooses certainty over risk. And in the supply chain, where every decision carries operational and financial consequences, trust is the ultimate competitive advantage. Today's supply chain marketing leaders aren't just responsible for awareness. They're responsible for growth, revenue, profitability, market confidence, which means marketing isn't a support function anymore. It's a business function. So the question becomes, how do we build brands that people believe in? Inside organizations built to optimize processes and not tell stories. That's exactly what we're going to dive into today. My guest today lives at the intersection of branding, business strategy, and growth. Ron Tite has spent more than 2 decades helping organizations figure out who they are, what they actually do, and how to talk about it in ways that drive real business results. He's an award-winning creative director, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and founder of the creative agency Church Plus State. His work has shaped global brands including Google, Intel, Microsoft, Volvo, and many more. Ron has built a career blurring the line between art and commerce, translating creativity into measurable business impact. And today, we're going to talk about what supply chain companies can learn from the world's best brands and why branding may be the most underused growth lever in our industry. Ron, welcome to the Supply Chain Marketing Show.
Well, thank you, Ralph. Thanks so much. That's such kind words. So what a lovely introduction. And hello to everybody out there and who's listening and watching.
Well, I appreciate that. And they do too. So look, let's start out with a question that in the 35 years I've been in this industry, seems to not have very much clarity. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Let's talk about branding versus marketing in the supply chain. So supply chain companies often invest very heavily in marketing tactics, whether that's campaigns, webinars, trade shows, but far less in brand strategy. So from your perspective, what's the difference between marketing activity and true brand building, and why do so many B2B organizations confuse the two?
Well, I think it's because of the evolution of what marketing has become. Marketing used to be about the four Ps. And what it became was, in many organizations, it was just swallowed by the increasing number of tactics that marketers deployed to try and drive growth and primarily acquisition. And so, marketing should be just as much about internal, about how you're pricing stuff and what products and services you're offering to people. But it's that fourth P of promotion that has really kind of taken everything over. And the result is that a lot of marketers have become executors of random acts of just a bunch of random stuff, and none of it really kind of connected. I think brand strategy at its core, at least through our lens at Church and State, is really aligning what an organization fundamentally believes in, what is the purpose that an organization believes in the actions that reinforce that purpose, what actions and decisions and products kind of bring that purpose to life. And then the last part is how are what you believe and what you do to reinforce that belief communicated? And how is that communicated internally? And how is it communicated externally? So it's really about aligning, what an organization thinks, does, and says. And to me, that is brand strategy.
Excellent. And I appreciate you laying that out so that people understand it with clarity. I say often, content is still king, but clarity is queen. And we need to, right? We need to be very clear. So the next thing
there's something that I've been working on called the fog of more. And the fog of more is just this idea that abundance is killing clarity. And why aren't things clear? It's because when supply chain marketers, when someone tells them we got to double growth, or we need to acquire 10 more customers or whatever, then there's this belief that we need more. We need more mission statements. We need more vision statements. We need BHAGs and North Stars, and we need more inputs, and we need more platforms, and we need more tactics. And at the end of the day, abundance is killing clarity. That's why we're not as clear on what we should be doing, and that's why the market isn't clear on who we are.
Excellent. And hold that thought, because we're going to talk about that in just a second, and I appreciate you bringing it up. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is something that came from a thought leadership think tank that Supply Chain Brain Media did a few years ago, and that is trust in the space, and how to create that through content, and how to get people to really understand we know where they are and empathize. So there's a trust gap, I guess would be the way I would put it. So supply chain decisions, they carry enormous operational and financial risk. Easily said, they're career making and breaking, quite frankly. And so the question to you is, how should companies think about branding as a mechanism for reducing buyer risk and accelerating trust, especially in these complex B2B environments?
Well, I'll tell you, that you're bang on that we are in a trust recession. That trust has never been lower. It's never been lower for business. It's never been lower for government and inside organizations. It's never been lower from employees to their leaders. So trust is at an all-time low. And why trust is at an all-time low is because one of the reasons, not placing all the blame on marketers, but one of the reasons is that in that redefinition of marketing, and we've put so much emphasis on the promotion piece, that we prioritized the promotion piece before, the say piece before the do piece. And so what we were doing, we call it I've been calling it lunch bag letdown. Where you're like, oh, this wasn't what I thought I was getting, because we've put so much emphasis and money and attention on the promise of this is the amazing thing you're gonna get, and we did that as it was aspiration. It wasn't baked in reality, and so everything from and especially as we've seen supply chain grow, where organizations used to have one piece of the supply chain, and now through convergence and acquisition and M&A and everything else, now we've got everything from container ship through to final mile delivery, and saying that the purpose and the values of the courier driver is going to be the same as the container. That's really, really difficult to ensure that consistency. So we've seen this where the actions or the outcomes do not align with what the promise was. And, if you go to a McDonald's and suddenly the Big Mac is made with pork in one particular city, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to get with a Big Mac. The reason we trust a Big Mac is because we know exactly what we're getting, and it lines up exactly to the promise. So I think that is the biggest thing from a marketing perspective. And it's either that the actions don't line up with the promise, or maybe it does, but there's an asterisk beside that promise where the headline is, final mile is free. But when you look at the asterisk, it's like, it's not. We're promising something we're actually not delivering, and we're driving people into the birdseed. And that just makes them not trust us.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mentor young folks in the industry professionally. And one of the things I ask them early in the mentoring is, why do we judge others on their actions and ourselves on our intentions?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So I think you're hitting the spot where people need to understand the industry, the market's looking at us through our actions, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what, in your intro, you talked about kind of the redefinition of marketing. And so what marketing has to do, all the marketers listening, go out, go to your C-suite, and take your responsibilities back. Take them back. If you're making promises for something that you are not responsible for delivering, well, you should be. And that's the big problem. If you're only responsible for the promise, I get how you're communicating an aspiration. But this is where training and development, and this is where human performance should be reporting into marketing so that they control the behaviors of the people who are delivering against the promise.
Right. Wow. And I really like that, Ron, because I'm a huge proponent of marketing being at the table with the C-suite. I think it's a crime that we have these people who are responsible for the branding and the lead generation and the front end of the business, and yet they're relegated to these, inferior and can't really influence anything internally kind of roles. To me, that needs to be changed.
We'll be back after this brief message.
In today's complex supply chain, marketing has never been more critical. But are you leveraging the full potential of your marketing efforts? Supply Chain Brain Media created 2 resources to help you discover what's new and what works. The Supply Chain Marketing Group series is designed to educate you on services and how to implement them into your marketing program. On the Supply Chain Marketing Show, hear firsthand how experts are implementing the elements from the 5 rings of supply chain marketing to drive results. Ready to elevate your marketing game? Schedule a 30-minute consult today. Email Morgan at supplychainbrainmedia.com. Supply Chain Brain Media, your guide to marketing success.
And now back to our show.
So now we're going to talk about what I call the we do everything problem. Mm-hmm. And you were alluding to this a minute ago. So many supply chain providers describe themselves as end-to-end solution providers. So my question to you is, why is trying to be everything to everyone often the fastest way to become invisible in the market?
Yeah, I mean, what cuts through especially now where many people are turning to AI tools for external communications. And so we're all kind of it's basically clip art communications. Like we got access to the same words and the same stuff, and it's popping up everywhere. And so there's a couple of things that are there. One is that we kind of see all those words blending together, so nothing stands out in our mind. So we become less difficult to find or to discover because we're just blending in with everybody. But the other aspect I think that's really critical is kind of B2B prospects kind of going, I've heard that script before. Like I've heard it before, and I'm not. If you're not showing me the real you, if you're hiding the real you from me in a low trust environment, my gut says, what else are you hiding? And so there, we use authenticity as a $2 word, but we really should deliver on that. And so part of being authentic is knowing precisely who we are and what we do best and who we are not. And the second that we try and become everything to everybody, it just creates, Seth Godin gave it this great term, which is everything just goes to room temperature. Art director, my art director's partners would say, well, that becomes very beige. It's all just beige, trying to blend in with everybody. And if you blend in, you don't stand out. And that's not good for anybody.
No, that's right. And if that was the case, they should hire an intern and we should all go find something else to do, right? And you touched on this a second ago, too, the whole internal alignment before external messaging kind of thing. We talk about organizations needing to understand who they are before telling the world. And I like that you talk about this. So the question is, what happens inside of these companies when brand clarity is missing? And how does that show up in sales, marketing, and growth, which is really what you're all about?
Yeah. Well, the room temperature beige communications that happens externally also happens internally, right? We go, oh, people are our most valuable. Like they've heard the script before. They know all that stuff. The C-suite kind of, a lot of CEOs tend to, speak from talking points that have been generated by their comms team. They speak from the presidential paddles at their, yearly offsite. And it's just a bunch of beige communications. So one, we have to apply the same urgency that we apply to external communications to our internal communications. So make sure they're very clear, make sure they're delivered with the same personality. And then what we really need to do is focus on clarity and why, so that people understand it. Yeah, sure. But the most important part of that is not only that I understand who we are and what we do and what we believe, it's so that it instructs me and informs me what I need to do personally to live up to that. And so many organizations are like, that sounds amazing. The CEO's speech was great. That's all great. Okay, what do you have to do to bring there? I don't know. I have no idea. And so two things either happen. One, they don't think they're important enough to the organization to have a clear role. And if they don't see a very clear and valued role in them personally helping bring the purpose to life and delivering against the promise, well, you're just looking at churn, right? I'm not special here. I'm going to go somewhere that I feel special. Or maybe they feel special, but they don't have clarity. So they're acting and behaving in ways that contradict what you fundamentally believe and will work against you achieving your goals, not work and help support you achieving your goals.
Right. No, that's great. Here's another one that's near and dear to my heart, because of the industry that we're in with supply chain. And that is, I'll put it this way, speaking human in a technical industry, right? So supply chain marketing team tends to lean pretty heavily on the jargon and the acronyms and the techno, if you will. So the question to you is, how can we as really kind of highly technical organizations communicate in a way that is credible, that these folks will understand we are human and we want to be emotional and we want it to compel the decision makers?
Yeah. So I think I've never been to AA, but isn't one of the steps like admitting you have a problem or something? Like one of the first steps, right?
Yes.
Which is like acknowledge that you've got a problem. So that's the first thing that all of us, me included, every single one of us have to acknowledge that often the first thing we come up with, the first thing we write, the first thing we speak, we default to those heavily scripted, buzzwordy things because they're top of mind, right? They're just totally top of mind, and we know because we've heard them so much that they're really easy to say. So there's what I like to do is I was a stand-up for a bunch of years, and in improv, improv comedy, I was trained at the Second City. So there's elements of kind of the improvisation which can feed their way into helping marketers. So there's one theater sport game in improv called Third Choice. And Third Choice is somebody on stage and they go like, there once was a boy and his name was, and if you finish that statement, you're going to come up with the most generic, the most logical name there, right? There once a boy and his name was Billy, Tommy, Davy. We all have those names. So if you acknowledge it's a challenge and a problem, you go, that's my first choice. And you check it off and you go, yep, there once a boy, his name was Davy. Then you force yourself. Because in the improv comedy exercise, someone from the audience yells, second choice. And you go, oh, I got to come up with a second choice for his name. Okay, it's his name's Johnny. And we go down the line of the next logical thing. And someone yells, third choice. Now we're forced to commit and find a third choice. That's when things get interesting. And that's when someone goes, Susie, right? And you're like, yes, okay, this is unique. This is more different. So you can do that to everybody listening. The next email you send this after a meeting, the subject line is probably like agenda for the meeting or minute from the meeting. That's your first choice. Your second choice is like, how can I make this more interesting? Maybe there was something said in the meeting, like there's an insight there or something occurred that you're like, Fred likes cake and other things that happened, or, like, oh, this is interesting. And so when you combine as a marketer, the power of insights of the things that people really care about and that really connect with them, and this idea of third choice to make it unique and interesting, that's really, really powerful.
I'm a huge fan of callback. So I really appreciate that very much. And I will probably use that in the not too distant future. The other thing that you talk about a lot in your business at Church and State is business, revenue, the things that marketing should be doing. And one of the things that came to my mind in getting ready for this interview was brand as a growth strategy. So marketing leaders today, we typically report to the people who are responsible now for that revenue, that profit. So my question is, how should executives like these chief marketing officers and revenue officers and executive officers start thinking as brand is not a cost, but more a long-term growth engine?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? Because there are, in pretty much every aspect of the business, people have been on, heavily focused on optimization for the past, let's say, 5 to 10 years. How do we make that better? How do we decrease that cost for acquisition? How do we decrease the cost per call? Like all that stuff. And so we've let the number crunchers take over. And the number crunchers, sadly, they look and they go, well, how is that gonna, what's the ROI on that particular spend? And let's just admit that it's ridiculously easy. It's ridiculously easier to calculate a return on investment on a marketing tactic that is lower in the funnel. That somebody who clicks on an offer. Maybe it's a white paper or whatever in the B2B world, whatever we're offering as our lower funnel activities. So it's so much easier to go like, we got 8% of people clicked on the thing and, came into our funnel. Longer term stuff that builds trust, stuff that is based on insight. Well, people don't respond to that right away. But what it does, if you invest in it, is it makes all those lower funnel things more efficient. So when we know who McDonald's is and we know what they stand for and we know what the food is going to taste like, and we've been warmed by the wonderful stories of people growing up with McDonald's, when they come out with the burger for $1, well, that's way more effective than it would be just on its own. And so you need to have that parallel investment of a longer term brand that establishes and builds trust and articulates precisely who your brand is, with activities that are really designed to get more urgent calls designed with more urgent calls to action, because those are just way easier to optimize. So it's getting the accountants on side often, which is the case. And if they don't get it, that's a tough battle to have, to look at numbers if they already don't agree with the perspective of what marketing is there for.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Final question before we wrap, and that is, supply chain marketing professionals and people who are responsible for growth listen to this 22-minute vodcast. What is it they should be remembering? And more importantly, what can they do right now to kind of start this journey of helping them with what we've been talking about today?
From a strategy perspective, here's a quick thing that they can write. If we look at aligning, what do we think, what do we do, and what do we say? Okay. Mm-hmm. So the think do part, just finish this statement. Okay. We believe this, so we do this by doing this. Mm-hmm. Finish that, write that statement. And once you've written it, go to others on your team and see if they were, because it's going to be very, very different. So you got to do what you can do to finish that statement. We believe this is our fundamental belief. So this is what connects purpose to action. So we do this. We believe this. So we do this. And the unique way that you do it is by doing this. Now, if that's what you believe and that's what you do, and the unique way that you do it, then the say part is the more traditional promotional marketing. And so all that is what do you say? How are you saying it? What's tonality, personality, campaign, lines, taglines? How are you saying it? When are you saying it? Is there a seasonality to this business? When are you saying it? Where are you saying it? What is the best platform for you? What is the best place you're going to do it? And lastly, why are you saying it to this particular group at this particular time? How can you customize your blanket messages to meet up with the very specific insight for the very specific group or very specific organization that you're talking to in that moment? That is marketing 101. Fill it out, and you're off to the races.
Nice. So if there's one thing today's conversation reminds us, it's this. Supply chains move products, but brands move decisions. In a world where technologies evolve quickly and capabilities begin to look the same, differentiation doesn't come from what you build. It comes from what people believe about you. The companies that win the next decade of supply chain won't simply be the most efficient. They'll be the most trusted, the most understood, and the most clear about the value they create. And it's the clarity we heard today from Ron Tite at Church and State that is the marketing exercise. It's a leadership decision. Thank you so much, Ron, for joining us today and help us rethink why branding really does matter for business growth. And to everyone listening, whether you're leaders in marketing, sales, or just the business itself, remember your brand is already telling the story. The question is, are you the one writing it? May your next 12 months be your best year ever, and may your market know exactly why you matter.
To discover how you can blend your marketing instruments into a harmonious sound and rise above the noise, schedule a 30-minute consultative session. Email morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. Again, that email address is morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. If you have any questions or episode suggestions, you can send those to morgan@supplychainbrainmedia.com. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Supply Chain Marketing Show presented by Supply Chain Brain Media. This is an omni-channel production in conjunction with PWE Media.